Let me jump to a happy one. This one made me smile. So one of the Democrats in Congress, his name is Max Frost. He's from Florida. He's the youngest member of Congress. I think he's like 14 years old or whatever the bare minimum is, but he's fantastic. And he's on the subcommittee for national security, the border, and foreign affairs. And this week, while they were in the chaos of choosing a speaker, there was actually a hearing on global religious persecution, which is important because there is religious persecution in other countries. And several of the Democrats said a lot of important things here. Robert Garcia, a guy I mentioned last week because he was a new member of the Congressional Free Thought Caucus, he brought up how domestic anti-LGBTQ bigotry, our bigotry, often gets transported to other countries. That's a good point to bring up. Jamie Raskin, co-founder of the Congressional Free Thought Caucus and like the conscience of Democrats, he noted the problems with blasphemy laws overseas. Great. You had Jared Moskowitz, another Democrat, calling out the Republicans, how they are silent when their own leaders, including Trump, cozy up to neo-Nazis, Holocaust deniers, and white supremacists. So all of that, very important. But I want to play you a clip from what Max Frost said during this hearing, because he called out white Christian nationalism. And I'm only playing you a part. He spoke for about 5-10 minutes with questions to one of the witnesses. But let me play you a little bit of it because he's just pointing out how radical our own country can be on this stuff.
And this threat to democracy has made its way to Congress. I mean, my colleague, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, has said, quote, Christian nationalism is actually a good thing. It is an identity that Republicans need to embrace, and I am being attacked by the godless left because I said I am a proud Christian nationalist, end quote. My colleague, Representative Lowen Boebert, said, quote, the church is supposed to direct the government. The government is not supposed to direct the church. I'm tired of this separation of church and state junk, end quote, junk being the Constitution and Bill of Rights. The Bible itself in 2 Corinthians actually warns us against this. Paul warned against this. He warned us against people who would preach of a Christ that differs from the true Christ that we learn about in the Bible. That's exactly what Christian nationalism is doing. I condemn religious extremism everywhere, globally and domestically, and we have to recognize the threat it poses to our most sacred freedoms and root it out everywhere. And I think it's incumbent, especially upon us as Christians, and me as a Christian, to be at the forefront of the fight to ensure that white nationalism and Christian nationalism doesn't see the light of day. Thank you, and I yield back.
That was an awesome thing to say. I love the fact that he just said, you know, as a Christian myself, it's important that people like me are at the forefront of the fight to ensure that white nationalism and Christian nationalism doesn't see the light of day. Do you like the subtle shade when he said in 2 Corinthians, there's a slap in the face to Donald Trump who doesn't know how to read that. That's interesting. It actually, what Max Frost was saying echoed a speech. If you're on YouTube right now, I think you should open this up in another tab if you haven't seen it. Last year, there was a Michigan state senator, Mallory McMorrow, who delivered a speech after a Republican called her a groomer for supporting LGBTQ rights. And she pointed out that as a straight, white, Christian, married, suburban mom, it was her job to protect kids from being marginalized and targeted because they are not straight, white, and Christian. And her speech was fantastic too. But this is why it's so important to have Democrats in office. And by the way, like Max Frost said, he is a religious guy. Fine. Let's get more of those Christians speaking out against Christian nationalism. By the way, the first person you saw in that video clip was Amanda Tyler of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty. And if you get a chance to watch the full clip, like, she answered those questions wonderfully too, saying very bluntly that Christian nationalism often overlaps with and provides cover for white supremacy and racial subjugation, and that Christian nationalism is used by white supremacists to try to justify their violence. And given that white Christian nationalism played such a key role in the January 6th insurrection attempt and it still wreaks havoc in GOP-led state legislatures. And there's now a Christian nationalist as Speaker of the House. It's never been more important for decent Christians to distance themselves from that ideology, to denounce people of their own faith who want to use their religion as a weapon against other people. I mean, I would imagine Christians like Frost, like Amanda Tyler, are probably the most angry when people who share their religion are complicit, in the hijacking of their faith. So good on them for calling it out. Love that clip. We need more Max Frost everywhere.